Hey, this is Yasuki Wolf, and today I'd like to talk about finding thirds and evenly spacing things in perspective. I titled it Finding Thirds first before spacing things evenly because finding splitting things into thirds has been is a very difficult thing that comes up very often when you're drawing things in perspective and just drawing things in general that you're trying to be kind of exact about your measurements. A lot of times you find situations where you want things to be where you want to cut something into thirds. I could think of examples, but there's I don't know. It's like make a roof of a house or windows or maybe just like maybe there's like a top of a structure that you don't want to be an exact cut. You want to kind of have like a middle area. Then it's really hard to think of specific examples, but trust me, it comes up a lot when you're drawing stuff with specific measurements. So that was the main thing that I wanted to put in the description because I know there may be some people that might be looking for that, and it's kind of an obscure thing. So I will get to that, but in order before we get to that, I also want to talk about cutting things into fourths, into half, and just spacing things out evenly within perspective. So what am I talking about? So let's take a look at this kind of setup that I have here, and this is a 1 point perspective with a couple of cube-like objects. They aren't exact cubes. I still haven't figured out how to actually draw an exact cube in perspective. I mean, it's easy enough to get a square to be like a true square, but then to get this measurement going back into the distance to be the correct distance from here to here. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. If anyone knows, or if you have a video that you could recommend me to watch, please put it in the description. I'd love to find out. But anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of these. We're going to first show how to cut this into fourths by finding the middle. So finding the middle, of course, you can just take a ruler and like measure this length, and then find half of that length, and then say, okay, here's the middle, and then kind of draw from there. But we want to be more exact than that. So I mean, a lot of you already know this is probably the easy part. You just connect edge to edge, and where it intersects, that's the middle. So there we go. We now have. Let's actually go to the dark layer so that I could have it in black. Why is my perspective not working? There we go. Okay, so line here, and then from here going back into the perspective, and from up to the top here, like so. And so now we have this cube cut into fourths. And then if we want to do the same thing on this side, we could draw a line from this corner to this corner. And actually where it intersects with the middle line we drew earlier, that's actually going to be the middle there too. You could go ahead and draw the line from there as well, just to be doubly sure, but trust me, that's enough to know the measurement. So that's cutting into fourths. And that's easy enough, but how would you cut that into thirds? That's where things get a little bit more difficult. So in order to do that, you start pretty much the same way. You start off with your lines. Sorry, I have a perspective guide on that was kind of throwing it off. Okay, there we go. So we draw our lines here, and we find the middle. All right. So now once you found the middle, you could draw a line from the middle up here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line from this point that we just made from the middle line back down to the corner on the left hand side, and then another one from the middle back down to the corner on the right hand side. I like to think of this as making like a sort of like an arrowhead facing, like shooting up, if you can see it here in the middle here. Let's fill that in just in case you can't. There you go. So you're making a shape sort of like that. And once you have that shape, well then now you look at where, how would I describe this? You look at these points of intersection right here. So I guess you have the line, the kind of arrowhead here, and then the point where the lines from your X intersect with the arrowhead. Those are going to be your 2 points that you're now going to draw lines from in order to make your thirds. So a line from here and a line from here. All right. And so now we have that split into thirds. And I believe it should work the same way the other direction. So would this be a third this way too? Let's find out. So let's see if we just deleted that and go ahead and go the other direction. Making our arrowhead again. There we go. And yeah, it looks like that it's the same point there. So there we go. So now it's split into thirds, horizontally and vertically. And of course you can just pull those back into the perspective points, like so. And so technically what we just did was not in perspective, because that was the face that was facing toward us. You know, that was completely just 2D. But the same principle works in perspective as well. And now that we actually have those first two lines, it's actually a little bit easier, because we can go ahead and draw. Why is it not letting me draw? Okay, there we go. Yeah, we're just going to draw the line from that corner to that corner. And now you can see that where that red line that we just drew intersects with the two lines that we drew from the thirds that we made. That would actually make thirds in perspective as well. So there we go. All right, so there we go. We now have it split into thirds. And why would that be useful? I mean, there's a lot of cases. I can't really think of them all. But you know, for example, right now, let's say that we wanted to now take that and say we want to delete the middle section, because say what we're trying to do is we're trying to make these columns that are all equally spaced from each other. So now we have. Sorry, I'm kind of struggling with my keyboard. I work many hours a day at work in an office with a specific layout, and so when I get home and try to do these videos, a lot of times it takes some getting used to the layout that I have here, which is a little bit more haphazard, with stuff laying on a very messy desk with many things in between me and the keyboard, but you know. Alright, so now we have these three pillars. We could imagine there may be a fourth one in the background as well, that are all equally spaced from each other. So that's kind of a cool thing to be able to use for this. And just to make sure that the length is the same, I'm going to draw a line from here across, and that's going to be kind of our guide to know exactly how far back this should go to be equal with the others. Is that right? It looks, I mean, that has to be right, but it looks a lot longer than I thought. See, so that's the thing that I was talking about earlier about making a perfect cube, because like you could kind of eyeball it and assume that this is about the same. You could assume that this is about the same length as this in perspective, but then once you kind of turn things like that, it's like, oh wait, no, that's nowhere near the right. And I think also because this really should probably be in like it probably would be better to have like another perspective point over here or something, but so it would be tilted or something, but yeah, that's beyond this lesson. Anyways,